3617, respond to report of shots fired.
The Coroner Talk podcast takes you behind the scenes with coroners, clinicians, and death investigators from around the world to provide training, news, and interviews from leading experts in the area of death investigation and scene management, bringing real stories and solid training together in one source. Now, here's your host, Darren Dake.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Coroner Talk. Again, we are still the only podcast in iTunes and all the other podcast directories focusing on the death investigator. Now, I don't say that every week so that somebody can run out there and start a new podcast. However, if you think you can and you want to do it, then I give you all the kudos for doing it. Because let me tell you, folks, podcasting is not easy. Now, if it was two guys in the mom's basement drinking a beer, talking about the game, okay, that may be. But for a quality podcast, it's kind of difficult. And so I don't think there's any other death investigators that really want to deal with that. So we're going to keep doing the best we can here. So I thank you for coming along every single week. Of course, we had a little bit of a lull and some of our listenership dropped off, but it is coming back strong over the last couple of weeks now that we are kind of back at it. So I won't spend a lot of time on anything else today. Wendy, of course, is joining us, and we're going to be talking about the Death with Dignity Act in Colorado and a little bit about assisted suicide on another realm and some other new products that's coming out to help people kill themselves. I've got a couple examples to give you there. However, remember, if you need training in any way, we are your source. Death Investigation Academy, we train lots of states in Con Ed. We train the 40-hour medical legal death investigator basic, both online and in classroom. We have a lot of new courses: blood pattern, homicide investigation, comprehensive death notifications. I don't know, there's 35 or 36 online courses over there. So just go to coronertalk.com, click on the Academy link in the upper menu, and you know what? That is there for you. And there's no reason you can't say, well, I can't get training. My department won't let me travel. I don't know where to get training. Well, now the excuse is over, because now you've heard that there was like 35 online courses you can take that also are ABMDI accredited. Some of them are IAI accredited. Well, all of them are Missouri accredited, and many other states accredited as well. So you got no excuse anymore that you cannot take any training. Just go over there and find something that fits you. All right, back here now live with Wendy. Wendy, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Darren. Good to be back again.
So I really enjoyed the whole altitude thing, and then, we're going to talk this week about Death with Dignity Act. Now, that's a law in Colorado, and used when we talked about it before. You said it's not assisted suicide, and there's clarifications there, but I don't want to talk a little bit about assisted suicide as well. But what is the Death with Dignity Act? First off, let's just say that. What is that law pertain to in Colorado?
What it is, it's I looked it up on a website called deathwithdignity.org, and what it is, it's so that it gives people that are terminally ill control over when they're going to die and how they're going to die. They're not going to suffer through a long-term terminal illness and just waiting to die. They can take control of when they're going to die, but they have to go through an extraordinary amount of steps to get to that. And Colorado isn't the only one. And there's other states that beat us to it quite a while ago. Oregon, it is the first one to have done the Death with Dignity laws. And some of the others are Washington, Vermont, New Mexico, New Jersey, Maine, Hawaii, District of Columbia, and California. All of those states also have the Death with Dignity Act, where somebody that is diagnosed with a terminal illness can go to their doctor. They have to see two physicians and that confirm that a patient has a diagnosis that is fatal. And they have to establish their residency in the state where they want to die. Like Colorado, they have to be a resident here. and what their diagnosis is, what their prognosis is, their mental competence, and their voluntariness of the request. And then there's 2 waiting periods. The first one between an oral request with their doctor, and then there's a waiting period, and then the second request between receiving and filling the prescription is required. So there's a lot of components that go into this. Once the doctor gives them the prescription, then they have to administer the medication themselves. They can't have somebody else do it for them. Like, say, a family member, it's like, okay, if I get to this point, then I need you to administer the medication. And it's a liquid that they drink.
So you've number one, the person has to make sure they don't get too far down the road that they can't get it themselves,
Correct.
And if they want to have this, so I know that's not assisted. So the law is you can't assist. So assisted suicide would be illegal. So if someone couldn't do it and couldn't get to the kitchen to get it out of the cabinet, someone mixed it up for you and gave it to grandma and grandma drank it, that would be assisted, even though it was pre-set up.
They can give it to them. They can have it there by the bedside, kind of like in a glass. And as long as they can hold the glass and drink it and they can swallow it, then that's not considered assisted.
So holding grandma's nose and pouring it in her mouth would be not assisted. That'd be wrong. That'd be wrong. Okay.
That'd be wrong.
Okay. I just clarifying that. So that's an interesting law. A lot of states, like you said, have something similar. Oregon, yes, they've been around that for a long time. I did notice the list. I didn't catch them all, but the list you gave off from a political standpoint is those states are a lot bluer than they are red. So it seems like it, and I don't know what that means. I'm not giving an opinion, but it just seems like the bluer the state, then again, the more the liberal drug laws, the liberal suicide laws, things like that. So that's an interesting point. I don't know that it means anything, but when you was reading those off, I'm like, yeah, those are all pretty blue states.
Right. And it looks like from the website that I looked at, Montana is they don't currently have a statute safeguarding physician-assisted death, but in 2009, the Montana Supreme Court did rule that there's nothing in the state law that prohibits a physician from honoring a terminally ill, mentally competent patient's request for prescribing a medication to assist in their death.
Interesting. Well, if someone's going to kill themselves, I would much rather them drink something and die peacefully than use a 12 gauge, because those are horrible scenes. And of course, we've both worked thousands of those over the years, but they're horrible.
Right.
So I've read a couple of neat articles a couple days ago. One was on this, I don't remember the country. I think Switzerland, although I could be wrong on that. It's called a suicide pod. And you could actually get into this pod, and whatever it does, it kills you. But I don't know. It's really freaky looking. But there's something else that is not approved. It's not active. It's not a real thing yet. But there's an inventor that has created something that is an implant. Like putting a little chip in you or something, right? Injecting a chip in you, and it's okay. Just like this. I know I'm terminal. I know I'm going to die at some point. So if I get to that point, then I can let myself die, or if I become brain dead or something like that. And what this chip is supposed to be is every day or every other day, it starts beeping under your skin, and you have to do something to shut it off. If you don't shut it off, it will kill you. It releases some kind of chemical, and you die, right? Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
I can see so many things go wrong there.
So many problems. I mean, man, you get drunk one night and you sleep in the next morning, you're dead. I mean, you're dead. So
I forgot to deactivate it.
Yeah. I'm not sure that one is going to take off. But the point I make about those is there's a lot more conversation these days about allowing people to end their life, call it with dignity or whatever, allowing people to end their life when they're terminally ill anyway. And so get a lot of controversy on that as far as religion and politics and just people's moral ethics of whether they believe suicide is right or not right. But again, this is a person choosing it for themselves. This isn't a state law, but everybody with cancer, we're going to kill you. This isn't euthanasia, but it's a personal decision. So if somebody decides to drink a prescription from the doctor, that's not any more right or wrong than someone deciding to use a 12 gauge, right? So people are going to kill themselves if they want to kill themselves, right?
Right.
Have you
This
had...
is a just much cleaner way to do it.
Much cleaner way. Years ago, they had the Derek Humphrey wrote the book. It was Hemlock Society, and he wrote a book on how to basically commit suicide at the end of life using hemlock. Well, it moved from that into helium. And the book talked about how to put the bag on your head with a tube and the helium tanks from Walmart, and all that was great. But then they caught on to it. So now if you go buy a helium tank from Walmart or Party Central or wherever for your kid's birthday party balloons, it's got 20% oxygen in it. So it'll still float a balloon, but it won't kill you. So,
okay.
Because you can put it on and breathe it, but there's 20% of oxygen in that tank, and so it won't die from it. So they've kind of stopped that. But my point is, there's always been, the Hemlock Society was in the 70s, but there's always been this movement and this conversation about someone ending their life when they choose to, especially someone being terminal. Have you worked the case with this prescription yet?
We've actually had, I believe, 4 or 5 cases in Summit County where somebody has chosen to die with dignity and gotten the prescription. And I believe the first one, the lady had a big party. All her family came up, her friends came over, they had a party, and the next morning, or maybe it was the next morning, then she chose to drink the cocktail that the doctor prescribed for her, and she simply went to sleep. And that was it. And we don't sign out the death certificates as suicide. We sign them out as natural death, and the cause was whatever terminal condition that they had.
Oh, okay. You just popped the top on a big old can of worms.
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
So is that part of the law? Is that part of the dignity?
Yes.
Because you don't want suicide on there?
Right.
Okay.
They just sped up their
no
terminal
they did not.
illness.
They did not. Okay, because when I hold grandma's nose and dump it down her throat, I didn't just speed up her terminal illness. I committed homicide.
True. That's true.
So the definition of suicide is taking one's own life, doing an act that you feel will end your life and of being of sound mind and blah, blah, blah. So that part I don't agree with the law. It's suicide. Now, it's okay. If we're going to say it's okay, it's okay. And if it's death with dignity and you get a prescription, I'm okay. I'm good with all of that. But I still think that if it, I'm a big advocate and the should be correct. And so it's suicide. I guess Colorado changed the law, and other states as well. They changed the law, which again, I learned something last week. I'm learning something this week. I did not know there was actual laws out there that would cause, this to be ruled a natural when it was an accident. Because here's a good example. We have hospice patients that they've got lung cancer. They're dying. They ended up dying on hospice, right? Our office gets notified of the death. That's hospice. They died of lung cancer. That's fine. Most likely they died of palliative care meds. I mean, to be honest, palliative care meds probably killed them before the cancer actually did, but that's just, we have to. Otherwise they're agonizing in pain. So we don't have a choice but to do that medically. I get that. However, if it was my grandma and I had a cruise coming up and I needed to speed this along, if I gave her a little bit extra morphine and she died, that's not lung cancer. So I'm like, that's the same kind of thing, but I don't know.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I think the idea behind that, signing out the death certificates as a natural death due to the disease process that they were dying from, and diagnosed with, that they don't want that stigma of suicide being on their death certificate, and for insurance purposes as well.
Well, I just took a breath to say, what about insurance? Because are they hiding it from the insurance company?
That's not my expertise area.
Sure.
I just know what we're supposed to be putting on the death certificates.
That's a good question, though.
Yeah, it is a good question. It is a good question.
Because the insurance companies would agree with me.
Probably would. But then on the same time too, they're saving money. So if the person chooses not to suffer and linger from a disease, that a terminal disease, that they're going to linger and be in pain and be suffering, they just shorten that process, which also shorten the insurance companies.
Well, if it's the same insurance company, my health insurance and my life insurance is not the same company.
Okay.
Because now I guess if you're maybe, the department and you have both at one same company or something, maybe, but yeah. But anyway, that's a different rabbit trail, but that's interesting that the whole death certificate thing goes through me, because I did not expect you to say that. That was actually a shock, but it's interesting that that's what the law says. Although, like in anything else, as death investigators, we have 50 states that we deal with, and each state has something different. So you've got to learn your state laws and things like that, and that's how you have to do it. Just like, and this is not a rabbit trail we'll go down today, but someday we will, in the whole death certificate / gender identity, right? Because same thing, each state has different laws on how you put gender on a death certificate. Now, I've gotten hate mail, like, a year and a half ago when I was talking about this whole gender death certificate thing. And so I probably don't want hate mail yet for 2022. So we'll do that in a couple months. But if it gets confusing to coroners in different states of what different states want, right? What can be one thing, what can be another. And now here with this. So you certainly have to know your laws where you work and kind of go that direction with it. So back up. How do you know then that the person has drank in this cocktail? Is there something they're supposed to lay out? Is there something they're supposed to tell somebody? How are you as an investigator?
They usually notify the ones we've had in our county. They've actually notified us ahead of time. On this date, this is when I'm going to drink my prescription. And
it just seems so funny.
Which is interesting. It's like, so we know we're to expect a call from the family, and I think that might be something that their doctors are maybe telling them, hey, you might want to notify the coroner's office, give them heads up. It's kind of like a hospice death, that we know it's coming at some point a short time down the road.
Yeah, true. But that's why I ask, is because just because I've been given the prescription and I decided to do it, but, I didn't have a big party and all my family wasn't there. So I might have, a son or a daughter or an uncle or something somewhere, but I decide tonight I'm going to do it. So I drink all my stuff, and I rinse my cup out and set it back in the cabinet or whatever. And I go to bed and I lay down and I die, and you get there the next morning because, somebody found you the next day or two, but you may not know in that case, unless they've told somebody or laid something out or said, I did this. You might just rule it as a natural unknown.
Well, and they do. It's like any other prescription. They're going to have their prescription there. Yeah. The bottle that the prescription came in. Right. And it is a prescription, as well as we would have access to their medical records. Right. That they had that. And they're actually pretty good about notifying us if they have a terminal condition and they're planning on doing this. We've, knock on wood, been lucky that we've been notified ahead of time that they have this and they're going to plan on doing the deed down the road. Yeah. And when they get closer to the date that they choose, then they let us know. And here in Colorado, I don't know anywhere else. If you have access to people's medical records, I can log in to a program and access somebody's medical records. And I can see in there, oh, well, yeah, this Dr. So-and-so prescribed this medication on this date. And I can see the whole history of when they've gone to their doctors for every treatment that they've had and their diagnoses, and they saw the 2 different doctors. Then I can see that, I can track that record.
Right. And like Missouri doesn't have that, and a lot of states don't have that. We just have to request the records, the paper records. But yeah, digital records, but we got to request them. There are other states like you're talking about where coroner's offices have access to log in and see people's medical records. So that'd make our job here so much easier, to be honest, that we could just see.
It is. We just started that, and wow, it is amazing the amount of information, because I'll talk to a family and they can't give me a comprehensive medical history, but then I can go back to the office, I can log in and go, oh, okay, they've been treated for all these list of symptoms or had these diagnoses and when they were and how they were treated and if they came out of it, if not. It has made my job so much easier, and that's just been in probably the last 6 months.
Huh, very interesting. Yeah, and I know that some states do that already, so hopefully mine will soon. Yeah, that's fantastic. So, back to this assisted. Well, that is not assisted suicide, but talking about assisted suicide. I don't know if it's a documentary on TV or an article I read or who knows what podcast. I don't know. Somewhere I heard about a gentleman that was in jail. I don't know if he actually got convicted, but he went to jail for a while, at least preliminarily. He had gotten a pistol out of the gun cabinet and gave it to his aging father, high 80s, 88, 89, whatever, end of life, whatever, handed it to him. The father then walked down the yard into a garden area that him and his wife used to deal with, whatever, and he sat out there in a chair for a while, probably contemplating, thinking about his wife and the big garden they used to have, whatever. And then, a little while later, he shot himself in the head, and they charged the son with assisted suicide because the father couldn't open the gun cabinet by himself, so the son got it out and handed it to him. Well,
right.
So again, I see the logic in that, in a way. However, had the gun been sitting on the counter, the old man could have grabbed it and walked to the garden anyway. So,
right.
But the argument was, you knew what he was going to do. So you got it out and gave it to him, knowing he was going to go down to the garden site and shoot himself. So because you did that, that's against this particular state law. I forget where it was at. That's assisted suicide. So with the death with dignity in Colorado, for instance, drinking this stuff, if I got it out of the cabinet, mixed it up and put it in a glass and brought it to my ailing relative and put their hand on it, but yet they raise it to their mouth, isn't that assisting? And I know we kind of talked about that a while ago, but you see how these can get kind of gray area?
Oh yeah. And the prescription that they get is they don't have, it's already pre-mixed.
Okay, just drink it.
It just comes in a bottle, and all they got to do is open it up and drink it.
Do you know what's in it by chance? I mean, you may not.
I don't.
Okay, yeah, that's no big deal. But I just wonder, apparently it's a peaceful death, so there must be a sedative, a fast-acting sedative that follows with something else.
Right, right. And the argument that I've heard from a lot of people that are for the assisted or the death with dignity is like, okay, we will help our animals that are terminally ill, we'll euthanize them.
Right.
But we won't for our own loved ones who want to die because they're suffering. They're going through a painful, long suffering process to die, but yet we'll help our animals along, but we won't our own loved ones.
So you know the reason why, right? I'm going to say it. Religion. Okay.
I know.
So
I know.
Everybody in this show perfectly knows that I'm a Christian. I'm a middle-aged white male, so I'm the enemy of everyone, right? As a middle-aged white male Christian, I am like everyone's enemy, and I accept that. But not just Christianity. Most organized religion believes that suicide is wrong, right?
Right.
So that's where you're getting the kickback, is that, like you said, well, if we do it to our animals, why can't we let our loved ones do it? Well, it's because animals don't have a soul, which I argue that too sometimes. But anyway.
I do too.
But anyway, different story. But anyway, that's because it comes into the religious aspect of, well, the Bible says, the Quran says, and I don't know the Quran. I shouldn't say that because I'm not an expert there. But the Bible certainly indicates that suicide would be wrong. Although there's some speculation there that it doesn't specifically say. There's a lot of things in the Bible that doesn't specifically say, and so there's a lot of gray area. But to your point, that's the issue. That's why there's a kickback on that, because we do it to our animals. Why we can't Grandma do it? And again, it's the religious thing. And again, I'm painting with a broad brush. I do not need hate mail for this statement I'm about to make. So keep your hate mail to yourself. But the bluer the state, the less conservative the state, the less religious influence in the political realm of the state. Okay, I hear keyboards now. Giving me hate mail. I hear it. But that's true. I'm not saying there's no Christians there. I'm not saying there's nobody who believes in God and blue. I'm not saying that. Keep your keyboard under control. What I'm saying is there's a different mindset when it comes from a red state to a blue state, when it comes to conservatism, Bible Belt, all of that. And all of that goes into is this death by dignity system good, or is it bad? And that falls down to personal conviction, personal choice. But if it does, then we've got to allow the person in Colorado, Oregon, California, that's their personal choice. And so if they wish to do that, that's their choice. And that, now that I'm on my political soapbox, I'll stay there for a second. That's the biggest problem in a lot of these laws in America, is because I have an opinion, and whoever, somebody else has an opinion. Okay, fine. I keep my opinion, you keep your opinion, we're fine. The problem comes in, we want to try to force our opinion on people. I don't want to force my opinion on nobody, and I don't want nobody to force their opinion on me. Live my life, you live your life, right?
Right.
That ain't how it works, is it, Wendy?
Nope, not always.
So as death investigators, when we get to these conferences and things talk about these issues, there's not only differences of opinion as far as your personal opinion, but the laws are so different. Right,
they are, and that's it's a fine line to balance.
Yeah, for sure. And like in Missouri and many other states, there's no question. Well, first off, there's no law that says a doctor can give you that, right? But there's no question. If it's found that you have given someone something, assisted something to do, that's assisted suicide, and they can be prosecuted. And I say they can be because doesn't mean the prosecuting attorney of that county will. Because I know of cases that's happened where the prosecutor is like, look, it may or may not have happened that way, but there's not enough evidence, and I have no desires to pursue it anyway. So that can happen.
Right.
So,
and I think that just varies by jurisdiction by jurisdiction.
Yeah. Which is another good point. Some places in Missouri, if someone, for instance, get killed in a car accident and they were pregnant and the baby dies, the prosecutor can charge them with murder. Right. However, a prosecutor, same state, Missouri, might say, well, I don't really believe that way. I mean, life may begin at conception, but before the baby was born, I'm not going to charge somebody with murder for a 32-week gestational fetus. I'm not going to do that. I don't believe in that. Again, same law, same state. The prosecuting attorneys have the right to decide on their reasoning for filing or not. So even within the same state, coroners can have differences of laws.
Right.
Interpretations.
Right.
So you've only worked one or two of these death with dignity cases?
Yeah. We've had about half a dozen, I believe, in Summit County since the law went into effect.
When did it go into effect?
I think It was, I want to say 2017. Let's see if I can get back to where it showed.
So Summit County isn't an outlier. It's not that that's a lot, right? It's just, I mean, you guys don't have an overabundance of them. No. Okay.
No. It's, and we're Summit County is a really small county. We're the smallest county in the state of Colorado.
You're so high up. Nobody wants to be there.
Yeah. Well, tell that to all the skiers that are inundating our county right now. It's crazy, but it's because we historically don't have very many deaths in our county.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the number of types of death, because like just this last year in 2021, we broke our record for number of deaths. We had 97 deaths.
Oh, wow.
Which is 10 over our previous record of 87 in 2015.
Yeah. So you guys are fairly rural up there.
Yeah. Well, we're rural, but densely populated because there's only so many places you can go up.
Yeah.
It's Summit County is becoming more and more heavily populated, and I think that's what's driving up our death rate. When I started in this business 32 years ago, we might have 25 or 30 deaths a year.
Yeah,
and as we become more and more popular as a ski destination, because we have 4 ski areas in that little county, and we have lots of people flocking to the mountains.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, you're how many deaths you do a year. Some people will hear that and say, man, that's a lot. And some will hear this and say, well, that ain't nothing. We did that last month or last week.
Yeah.
And that's true. It's just all different, you know? But again, that's where some smaller counties, they don't work very many deaths, so they don't put a high emphasis on training. But of course, I know you guys are different because I know that some of the trainings you've been through and some of the things you guys do in your coroner's office, but some don't. You know, I mean, we work a few hundred a year, but you know that's still low for. You know, you get. We're outside of St. Louis, but you get into St. Louis proper, they're doing, you know, a lot more than that. So again, each area, of course, they're going to have their own, but the types are all the same. It's just how many of each type you get. Right.
And it's just like I just did the stats for our county last year, and we had 0 homicides and 0 undetermined deaths.
Wow.
And a majority of our deaths were natural deaths.
Yeah, man, I wish I could go through some years with no homicides. In fact, as we record this next week, I have a coroner's inquest that I'm doing on a homicide, and it was we'll talk more about it, I'm sure, after the coroner's inquest is done. But it was it's gotten some national exposure because of Black Lives Matter came down, and a black gentleman was shot on the front porch of a white gentleman's house after the black gentleman was trying to force entry. Well, I did force entry into his home. The struggle ensued, got pushed back out on the porch. The stand your ground law came in. The guy was in fear. He shot him. The guy walked out in the driveway and fell dead. Well, all of this is on video. Right? From video cameras in 2 different houses, on the driveway, everything. Well, that ain't good enough, right? So now we have this big ordeal of people protesting the courthouse and people protesting. So now we're going to have a coroner's inquest, and we're going to show it all. We're going to show all the toxicology, all the video, all the witnesses, all the people that day said one thing. I saw this, and now they're on the news saying something totally different. We're going to get their butt on the stand, and we're going to say, okay, now on this written statement, on the day of this occurrence, you said this, but on the news, you said that. Which one is true? Right? And we're just going to expose it all. We're going to invite the media. They can all come, and they can see all the evidence. And again, I know that facts are never strong enough to change someone's opinion, but at least we're going to lay the facts out there.
Right. And people can form their own opinions.
Yeah. Right now they're forming their own opinion with no facts, but we're going to give them to them. We're going to let them see the video. We're going to, all of that. And that's what a coroner's inquest is for.
Educated opinion.
Yeah. So that's what a coroner's inquest is for. But again, it can be kind of rough. So, all right. Well, this has been a great conversation, Wendy. Again, every week. Now I'm learning something new. So this is working out really, really well. So again, thanks for coming on. Thanks for being a part of the show. You're going to be a fixture, so I'll quit thanking you at some point. But for now, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this. And of course, we got a lot more topics coming up for everyone as the year goes on. And I say this before, if you're listening to us right now and you have a topic you would like for us to cover, whether you want a certain guest to come on to join Wendy and I, or you have a topic you want us to talk about or explore or research, email us, let us know, and we will do what we can to bring that on the show. So certainly let us know, and we'll do everything we can to do that. So until next week, everybody, remember to find a way to be a blessing. I've said that every episode since 2014. Find a way to be a blessing to someone in your life, even if it's just smiling and holding the door open for somebody, all the way to going and paying somebody's mortgage off. Whatever you can do to be a blessing, find a way to be a blessing. And above all, stay safe.
Thanks for listening to Coroner Talk, a DSPN media production.
Visit our website at coronertalk.com.
And be sure to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/coroner training.
3617 1024 scene en route to morgue.